Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning into the BAMF podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. And with us today, we have hit the big leagues. Every once in a while, one of the big name publishers graces us with the patina of respectability. And today, Mr. Christopher Lights is here from the Free League to talk about Twilight 2000. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining.
My pleasure.
And before we jump into that, my ever-willing co-host, Jacob Blackmon. Hey, Jacob.
Hello.
I want to talk about the print version of the Monster Manual Expanded 2 for 5e has just come out on DM's Guild. So we're going to look at some art from that real fast and talk about that. So this is a book for, well, tell us a little bit about it.
Both the Monster Manual Expanded and the Monster Manual Expanded 2 are, like the cover says, expansions for your Monster Manual for 5th edition D&D. They have quite a few beasts and creatures in the Monster Manual, and the subsequent releases of Photo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. But people are always wanting more, and these books expand greatly on all those creatures. They have lower powered versions of all the creatures, higher powered versions of all the creatures, variants of the creatures. So, if you're wanting more animated objects that you can create, you have those. Statues of every kind. So if you want a stone statue or a metal statue or whatever, they've got a different write-up for each based on all the different kinds of things you can get. Different age categories for dragons that already exist, and as well as several creatures that have existed in previous monster manuals in older editions, 4th edition, 3rd edition, that have yet to make the conversion to 5th. So I highly recommend, if you want to expand on your 5th edition D&D game, to pick up a copy of the Monster Manual 2, the Monster Manual Expanded 1 and 2. They have them available in PDF, and just recently they have made these available for print. And I picked them up. They're excellent. The quality of book is great. They're really nice expansions to your D&D game. I highly recommend them.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you very much for that. Now, just to be clear, this is not a WotC release. This is off DM's Guild.
That is correct. These are fan-made publications, like a lot of other things on the DM's Guild. They are using the DM's Guild license, so they can use art from WotC products. They also have a couple of stock art pieces in there. When I had no idea until I bought these. Each one of these has a piece of my art in it. Like one of them uses the Froghemoth, and I think there's another one that has a piece of my Grimlock art in it.
Yeah,
I had no idea until I picked it up.
I noticed there was a lot of stock art in there. So it's DM's Guild, so that explains that. So, all right, cool. So let's switch our share screen. We were talking about this. Now let's go over here to I keep wanting to call you guys Free League, but I mean the name of your company. Well, I guess you can
Free League is fine. I mean, I don't think Tomas cares either way.
All right, that's all good then. So tell us about Twilight 2000. This was a game I played and loved way back in the. Oh, I'm so old, Chris. 90s.
Yeah,
Twilight 2000 is a great game.
I played it when I was like, I don't know, 9. I think is when I started playing it. I've loved it for years, and I was sorry to see it go. But obviously, when the Cold War ended, it became harder to sell it. And now, it's kind of a part of it is Cold War nostalgia. But I think for me, a lot of it is also looking at the apocalyptic effects of climate change, which could, in an extreme situation, have a similar effect. I think, the apocalypse is always popular to some extent. So. But yeah, I love working on it. I was obsessed with it as a kid. I was obsessed with the Cold War. I was obsessed with small arms, special forces, all kinds of stuff. So this is a dream come true for 5th grade me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's 2020. The apocalypse could happen next week, and it wouldn't seem out of place.
No, it wouldn't. It's odd timing for the game. I don't know if that's fortuitous or not, but seriously, the apocalypse could happen. And I was reading that the border between China and India, they're fighting with like clubs, and they've killed a bunch of each other. And I mean, it just sounded like something that would have happened, in Twilight. It's crazy.
Yeah, you would think a skirmish between two nuclear powers would get a lot more headlines than it is.
Yeah, and it's so weird because in any other time it would, but now it's like you have to dig for news that is of world importance because, well, there's plague running around the planet and everything else.
Yeah, actually, the closest we ever came to a live nuclear war was in the mid to late 70s in another border dispute between the Soviet Union and China. But I don't even think that made the headlines in North
I think
America.
the first edition of Twilight 2000, I think, played on that a little bit because the war, if I recall correctly, started between China and Russia in first edition and then sort of blew up from there.
Speaking of which, we should probably let our viewers know, because we know what Twilight 2000 is. We should probably explain to them what Twilight 2000 is.
Twilight 2000 posits Third World War, which was the culmination of the Cold War in the mid to late 90s, where there was a nuclear war, but it wasn't to the extent that mankind was wiped off the planet. So it's a more realistic look at what a limited exchange nuclear war would have done to the world. And you play soldiers who have been given an order, good luck, you're on your own, and you're trying to escape Poland. That's the general theory. In our game, we've made a lot of the locations and encounters such that you can adapt them to different locations. So there'll be a section on Sweden, and then obviously there's the Poland section, and then in the future we'll probably get back to America. But the basic premise is you're either a soldier or a civilian, and you are trying to survive at the tail end of this war that's essentially destroyed everything that we would call civilization. There's no real communications structure, infrastructure is gone. You're trying to avoid enemy patrols. The enemy might be some of your own, former units that have turned into marauders. You don't know.
Yeah, it's more of a close, I don't want to say close feeling apocalypse, but no one's reverted to wearing hockey gear and talking about
it's really, I think, it's the most realistic apocalypse I saw in gaming, certainly.
Now, we've been looking at some of the great art here on the screen. Who's your artist for this project?
You know what? I am not sure what that gentleman's name is. I forget that.
I'm seeing Nicholas. I'm seeing
He's
Nicholas
very
Brandt
talented.
here on the page. So
Yeah, that's him. And then I'm not sure if the covers will all be the same. Tomas has not told me yet on that.
no worries. So tell us about the system. Tell us about the game.
Well, the system right now is following the general Free League model that Mutant Chronicles uses, that Alien uses. However, we are in the background playtesting a different, more radically changed version of that, but I can't say too much about that. There were some people that Twilight 2000 fans, there was a lot of people that said they didn't want to use dice pools. So we're trying something without dice pools. The usual system uses dice pools, not huge ones, but some people don't like dice pools, so we're giving some play testing to an alternative system.
It's not often when someone says, "I can't tell you about this," but now let me tell you all about that.
Well,
in trouble, man.
I can tell you that we're testing something else. Otherwise, if we go with the previous system, it'll look like Alien with a lot more focus on combat. Obviously, you need to have rules for vehicles. You need to have rules for suppression. We brought coolness under fire back if anybody's played the previous editions. So it's much more realistic than, I guess, like Mutant Chronicles, or I'm sorry, Mutant Year Zero, where, well, as you pointed out, there's Mad Max stuff going on. But, people have mutations and stuff, and the combat doesn't have to be as granular. You're not as worried about necessarily counting ammunition or people, succumbing to shock or freaking out from just being shot at, that sort of thing. So the balance we're trying to strike is give it enough granularity so that it's accurate from a military point of view, but not unplayable and not something that would fit. I don't know if anybody played, what was it? The old Phoenix system that like it took hours to figure out like what happened with one bullet. It was a game in the 80s, and it was like super military. Yeah, it was super military simulation. And the old Twilight 2000, the first edition, was also a little bit too crunchy. So we're not going to go that crunchy, but because it's a game that's rooted in combat, and a lot of the fans are ex-military or military enthusiasts, we are definitely paying attention to them.
All right. So when can I put my hands on this book? How can I find out more?
It's going to be the Kickstarter is going to probably be a little later this year, and then the release, I'm guessing, will be quarter 1 or 2 of 2021.
Okay. If I'm a diehard Twilight 2000 guy and I want to be on the beta testers or just be on your mailing list,
go to the Facebook group for Twilight 2000. That's where I'm active most of the time.
Okay.
It's just the Twilight 2000 Facebook group, and Tomas pops in there as well, and that is probably the best place to get in on a playtest. I'm talking to Tomas about doing a small playtest for a group that I'm a part of, and then maybe expanding from there. It'll be a little while yet before we open it to the public.
Let's see. So that's Twilight 2000 by Free League, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And let me show this page so that any interested viewers can find that easily. So because, as you would expect with a game with this kind of legacy, there are a few different ones. And the one we're interested in is this one right here. So,
yes.
All right, cool. And for all the latest information, go there. And
and Free League, you can always go to the Free League site as well. But if you have any questions for me specifically, or Tomas, post them there. That's where we're most likely to see them.
Okay, cool. That's good stuff. So this has been a dream come true for 9-year-old Chris, having a chance to work on this property.
Yes, yeah. I mean, just looking at these pictures brings me back to. I mean, I used to read books just about small arms, special forces. You know, at one point, I think I knew the cyclic rates of most of the small arms in the NATO and Warsaw. I had a strange childhood, and this is all just straight out of that for me. We've updated it some because, you know, obviously when this game came out in 1984, nobody knew what the 90s were going to be like. So we've included some cultural references and technology from the 90s. But, you know, by and large, it's very close to what I think people remember and enjoy about the game. And even if you're not a huge, you know, fan of military simulation, you can play civilians, you can play whatever you want in this game. So if you're looking for a realistic apocalypse and the real world isn't enough for you, you can play this.
Yeah. You ever talk to anybody who was posted over in West Germany during those days?
Yes, we have consultants that are involved. I have a couple of friends that were in Germany during those days. One guy was in artillery, and he said essentially every U.S. military unit there was a speed bump for the Soviet tanks. And their job was to just slow them down and hope they didn't have 100% casualties while the rest of the U.S. military got organized and decided when and where they were going to strike.
Yeah, that's that lines up with what I heard. There was one story I've never forgotten. I heard like 20 years ago from a guy talking about walking patrol real close to the border. And you weren't issued regular clips. You were issued your ammunition in little foil packs, and you couldn't put them into your rifle. And, you know, sometimes the Soviets would conduct what they called, or I guess the East Germans, what they called ammunition tests. Right. They would basically shoot over the border. And, you know, you radio back in and ask for permission to open the foil packs containing your bullets and load your rifles. And usually you were told no, because we don't want it.
Yeah, well, the whole situation was such a tinderbox. You know, it could have exploded. We're real lucky that the Cold War ended the way it did. I mean, you mentioned the incident in the 70s. In 83, there was a guy in a missile silo. He was Russian, and he happened to not follow procedure
Stanislav Petrov.
Yeah, exactly. And he probably saved the world. There were when the Berlin Wall was falling, people weren't sure, and then you had the coup, which is where we sort of take off from if the coup succeeded.
Yep.
It was the whole era was just. It's hard to imagine that we were all living where you thought you could wake up the next morning and the world would just be gone.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of back there in a different way. It's surreal.
Yeah.
Only this time we're back there thinking that we're going to be the cause of it.
Yes, exactly. It's and we're in a much longer apocalypse now, whereas with the Cold War it was a single cause kind of thing. Here there's so many varying factors, and it really requires the entire world to get together and do something about it. And I think a lot of people in the Cold War, a lot of countries just felt hapless victims of the two major powers. And I've talked to some people that lived in Poland and other places that were under the nuclear umbrella of either us or the Soviets. And they were just trying to figure out how to, deal with, well, what if one of these powers decides to launch? We're all going to suffer, immediately. And they would have been the battlefield as well, even if we didn't go to a full nuclear exchange with ICBMs and such, Poland and England and most of continental Europe would have been devastated.
Yeah, did you I've been trying to brush up on my German lately, watching a German language TV show called Deutschland 83.
Oh, I heard that was excellent.
It's really good, and it's sometimes hard to find German language stuff in America that's not about World War II.
Right.
So it's kind of a fresh breath, a breath of fresh air in that respect. And it's about the Able Archer exercise.
Yeah, that was another one that they say could have easily set off World War III.
If you have a chance,
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's on iTunes. I mean, it's got subtitles if you don't want to, bother trying to, for me, it's 25 years ago, college German trying to.
Yeah, I never studied German. I was the closest I got was I was a philosophy major as an undergrad, so Nietzsche, Hegel, that kind of stuff. But very limited. The stuff that they didn't translate in the text.
Yeah, it's they're pretty faithful in the subtitles. Every once in a while, there's some slang or something that they kind of skimp on, but you're always going to have that. So. Yeah,
that's unavoidable.
Well, hey, so you guys launched Kickstarter. Did you say later this fall?
I think it's going to be this fall. Yeah.
Okay.
That is the plan.
Okay, so August, September, TBD.
Something like that.
All right. Well, hey, I'll reach out to you in a couple months, see if we can get you back on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm around.
All right, excellent. Jacob,
hopefully I can share more then.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Any closing thoughts, guys, before we wrap things up?
No, I hope other people are fond of Twilight 2000 and are looking for an escapist apocalypse from the actual one. At least in the game, you can feel you have some control.
Yeah, that is always a factor.
You can be like, oh, it's my fault I got shot.
You can relieve the stress of this apocalypse by role-playing this apocalypse.
Exactly.
Oh, it's a crazy world we live in. All right, hey,
it really is.
Appreciate you coming out. To all our listeners and viewers, thanks for checking in to the BAMF podcast. We will see you next time.
My pleasure.
And now there's an awkward moment between I hit the button